everyone. I'm Lorianne. I am that gal from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we welcome Laura Formentini. She is an author, nonprofit photographer, and activist. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Lorianne. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. So, Laura, can you just give us a little bit about your story?
Sure. So I've been a nonprofit photographer for many years, and I've worked with numerous NGOs from around the world. And I've been an activist, so I've worked with animal welfare organizations, and I've always had this love for travel. In fact, my previous lifetime, I was in archaeology. I was an archaeologist, and then as I kept traveling around the world, I realized the disparity between rich and poor in the world, and that led me to this new adventure, which was nonprofit photography. It's been a wonderful journey where I've met fantastic people who have accomplished extraordinary things and beaten all odds despite everything, even despite COVID. So I capture their stories of perseverance and grit despite everything. So I love capturing people's strength and how we can all, if you know, the messages that I try to spread is, if they are able to do it, we all can transform ourselves and really stay in our power. But really, so I just wrote a book. I just published a book a month and a half ago. And besides my photography, I got into writing, because all these stories, the people that I meet give me a lot of incredible, they just infuse so much power and strength in me. And I really wanted to convey these stories to the world. So I just published a book. I finished another one, which I'm hoping to publish by the end of the year. And I'm writing a third book, which will be on animal sanctuaries from around the world. But anyway, so mainly I consider myself an activist, and I really believe that the greatest adventure in life is helping people and animals and the planet in which we live. And how I do that by spreading, a message through my photography and my writing, but also I also like to include in my daily routine small random acts of kindness, big and small. It doesn't matter who the person is. I just try to incorporate into my everyday life at least 5 random acts of kindness. And because I myself am a witness to the magnitude of what random acts of kindness can create. So my story really, my life story hit a major turning point in 2019 when I was working in Ethiopia, and I was doing photography work. I was also collecting stories of positive transformation from the locals. And while I was in Ethiopia, actually I was in the rural part of Ethiopia, south of Addis Ababa, the capital. And when I got word that my 21-year-old son had taken his life on the other side of the world. And his name was Blaze, and we were absolute soulmates in the sense that we spoke alike, thought alike, even looked alike. And we had planned to work together in the nonprofit field. But he was, and we're both empaths, so very much in tune with people's feelings and the energies. But unfortunately, he was almost too empathic, where he would absorb everything, and he didn't feel comfortable in dealing with the harshness of everyday life. And so what happened was he really decided to leave before understanding that his empathy is a gift, that empathy is healing, can heal. You need to understand how to use your empathy. And so once I received the news, I obviously I dropped everything that I was doing. I had to cut short my trip and frantically find a flight to get back to the States, because it happened in the Western United States. And so while I was trying to find a flight, this amazing Ethiopian man, a complete stranger, showed up. He was the beacon in my darkest hour, and he was a friend of one of my guides in Ethiopia. And nobody could come back with me to the States because nobody had a passport. This guy shows up, he's a friend of one of my guides, and he said, I'll be with you all day until departure tonight. And by the way, it ended up being not just one flight, but 4 flights to get back to the States. It was incredibly long. That's the only thing I could find, a 30-hour trip back halfway the globe by myself. So he holds my hand all day long, and takes me to lunch, and he's unbelievably nice and kind. He kept touching me, kept touching my cheek and saying, are you okay, sister? I'm your brother. You're gonna be okay. So anyway, to make it short, when it's time to when it's time to actually get to the airport after 10 hours or so of holding hands with each other, I asked him, so why did you do all of this for me? You don't even know me. Okay. And he looks at me and he said, I didn't do anything special, Laura. It was my human responsibility. Okay. And I would say, when I tried to express my gratitude, he declined and said it was my human responsibility. So the spontaneous act of compassion not only saved my life, but it stayed with me. In fact, I would have never made it on those 4 flights hadn't I met the kind stranger. So basically, my message now is not only I keep working with nonprofit organizations, I try to incorporate random acts of kindness in my life, because you never know how those acts of kindness can impact someone else's life. So you see, he didn't think that he had done anything special, but his kind actions saved me, and they stayed with me. Because, when COVID first began claiming the lives of thousands of people in 2020, I was already dealing with the pain of my son's suicide. And so everything started feeling, sounding, looking completely different all of a sudden. And I was at a loss on what to do next. But then I started realizing that his compassionate actions were still with me. And I'm like, he really didn't think that he did anything special, but he saved me, and it stayed with me, because soon after I started writing notes and letters to my son, and just to heal myself. Okay. In fact, I'm not really big on doing psychotherapy or therapy in general. Writing was very cathartic for me. And so I started writing, but not with the idea of writing a book. It was not my intention. My intention was really to let all the pain out in some way, to move this energy. And then I started meeting people just randomly who would tell me, oh, these, because besides the poems and the letters, I started writing fables here and there, just out of the blue. I just had these ideas for fables. And then I started meeting people who would tell me, this could be a wonderful book that, that could help others to transform themselves as well. And sooner or later, I ended up putting a book together that I met a wonderful illustrator from England. and a great agent, a great publisher, and publicist, and there we are. So the book has been out for about a month and a half. I've been asked to sell the translation rights and to translate it into a lot of different languages, and it's already at a lot of libraries and bookstores. And the beauty of this book is that it really shows you my my sort of like my pilgrimage of transformation. So it goes from showing the initial uncontrollable pain and difficulties, and then it shows the arc of my healing, because no matter what, grief is about, according to the Kubler-Ross model, it's about 5 different emotions that no matter what kind of grief you're going through, you experience these emotions. And so you have denial, you have anger, bargaining, sadness, and eventually acceptance. And grief is a natural response to any sort of loss. So it can be death, it can be a disaster, it can be job loss or divorce. And no matter what kind of grief you're going through, you'll go through these emotions, which can cycle back as well. And so I went through those emotions, but I got to the point where I learned how to heal myself. So it's almost like a 6th emotion where I realized that life is all about transformation. It's about kindness and love and spreading the good word and trying to help each other out. And that was really my goal in the end with this book, in the beginning to heal myself, but then to gift it to the world and to those who are going through their own pain and suffering, and to be a beacon in their darkness, just like the stranger was for me back then. And the stranger is not a stranger anymore, because he's just a fantastic friend. And we talk, he's still in Ethiopia. We talk to each other every once in a while, like every 10 days or so. And my goal is to have him over to the States, and he's never been out of Ethiopia. And that would be a great way of moving forward. And so it's been quite a journey. So that's really my story. And the book's title is 21 Olive Trees. And I picked this title because my son was 21 when he passed. And I picked the olive tree because, as you know, the olive tree is very powerful. It's very strong. They live up to 300, 500 years sometimes. And it's a symbol of power and regeneration and strength. And so it's a book that is subdivided into 21 sections. You have 21 fables, 21 poems, and then letters to my son. And there's an introduction on how I started writing the book and how I've started healing myself, and how it is in our power to heal ourselves no matter what tragedy you're going through.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from your book so far?
So far, besides the fact that I've been asked to sell the translation rights, and which is wonderful. I have publishers interested in India and South America, and I'm going to translate it into German and French and Italian. I've gotten wonderful reviews from Kirkus. I got a starred review. I've got an unbelievable review from the New York Journal, the Books Journal of New York. I'm sorry, New York Journal of Books. Sorry about that. I'm receiving wonderful reviews, and it only came out a month and a half ago, so it's already at a lot of libraries here in the States. And my goal is really to try to spread the word as much as possible and send this book everywhere, because it's almost like my son is still with me. It's just like when we were together, traveling together and living together, and he's here in spirit. And I know that he was there while I was writing it. And so, and it's almost like I hear, "Good job, Mom. We're doing it." And, and so it's at some pretty major libraries already, including San Francisco and Seattle. And my goal is to send it to also those countries where suicide is rampant. especially Scandinavia. He has a friend from Sweden who was telling me, one of my son's friends who was telling me that it's rampant up there. So Sweden and Norway and Finland. And so my idea is to really spread the word as much as possible that empathy is a gift. If you're empathic, highly sensitive, stick with it. You can do a lot in the world. You can heal. It is in your power to transform yourself and heal yourself no matter what you go through. And I've had wonderful mentors in my life, thanks to my work, who have taught me that, healing is possible, it's no matter what. If psychotherapy doesn't work for you or bereavement counseling doesn't work for you, you can always rely on volunteering, on practicing kindness, because there's lots of studies that show that committing kindness, acts of kindness can really be beneficial for your well-being and your emotional health. And so it's all directly proportional to your well-being. How many acts of kindness you perform or commit is directly proportional to your well-being. So, and I know because I practice them every day. I do a lot of nonprofit work, and it really does do. It's just a miracle, if you don't feel like sitting in a therapist's office. That's my alternative, an alternative that I suggest because it's working for me. So,
Yeah.
I think most people get more out of when they volunteer. They get more back than they put
right.
into the volunteering. I think just almost anyone you talk to will say that.
Yes. Volunteering can go a long way for your emotional well-being, for sure. And so it's and you don't have to do anything big. You can start small. You can start where you are and start in your community. And according to the CDC, a lot of us have experienced grief as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's like almost all of us have experienced grief in one way or the other. And so I think that, if we realize that we're all in this together, the whole world has gone through it. So the whole world has experienced some sort of grief. And so that should help us to realize that, hey, you're not the only one going through your grief. You're not the only one going through your own, pain and darkness. Everybody has experienced it. And so being there for each other is very important. And again, you can start with your community. You can start where you are. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to be a celebrity. It's a matter of putting yourself out there, because there's always need. There's a ton of need out there. There's always someone who is suffering a little bit more than you. And so that is really my message, that we are all in this together, and putting yourself out there in this way means to reconnect to the whole and to heal together. Because if I practice random acts of kindness every day, then I am going to be the recipient of random acts of kindness as well. Because if we all practice it, and who doesn't like free gifts, right? So it's kind of like, what am I going to get today? So
I can argue that one just for fun. When I was in my 20s, I used to love to do it. And I lived downtown Toronto, and I did it a couple of times. I would go out and buy roses, and I would hand them to people. And I can't tell you how many people rejected them. I'm going, they're free. One time I couldn't, so I just went from store to store and gave it to the store owners because I couldn't get rid of them. Because right. People are they were scared. What is it? It's a rose. I mean, I can see if a little box, they might be scared there might be something in it that they don't want to open up. But a rose. Anyway, I just found that really interesting. I was really super surprised about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a rose. So it's not a diamond, but it's a rose. And it's like, whoa, it's beautiful.
But the people who did take it, though, they were so grateful. They thought it was just so wonderful. The ones that did accept it. So I was just surprised, though. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the beauty of giving, and so it's fantastic.
Laura, where can our listeners get your book?
So my book is in a lot of libraries and bookstores, but you can find it at Barnes and Noble, but you can also find it on Amazon. And if you go on my website, there's all sorts of information on there on how to find the book or where to find the book. But typically, if I would say that the easiest way is to just go on Amazon.
Okay.
And what is your website, just in case somebody wants to look a little bit more up?
The website is Laura, Laura, Formentini, FORMENTINI.com, lauraformentini.com.
Okay. That's the easy.
On my work and my book and my future books is all on there.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for sharing today, Laura. We really appreciate you being here.
Roy and Lorianne, thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.